They took your name, your land, your language, but not your legacy. Reclaim it at AfricanAncestry.com.
So the savior complex, Hollywood plays a role, but I want to be clear here. It plays a role as simply a part of a system. And so Hollywood is the vehicle for actualizing white/European imagination and fantasy. In other words, European white fantasy becomes law. What they fear, what they're anxious about becomes law. It becomes policy, public policy. It becomes curricular. It becomes what we see and consume in terms of entertainment. And so Hollywood, therefore, is only a part of that machinery, that industry, that system, whereby it communicates, the sort of anxieties and fantasies and really fear from the white imagination, right? From the white unconscious. And therefore, it promotes and projects it, but doesn't create it. By the it, I mean the savior complex. The savior complex, is simply just one of several, challenges that confronts the life and death, efforts of people of African ancestry, right? Because of the social material predicament that people across the African world, meaning the African diaspora and beyond, they tend to gravitate to that complex because they need saving, according to the complex, right? In other words, when you think about Africa, you think about war and disease, right? And famine, right? They need saving. When you think about, Black communities in the United States, poverty, crime, welfare, they need saving. So the savior complex, in a way, is really a symptom, not a cause of itself. In other words, the complex appears because it needs to appear to justify the condition that people live in, right? In other words, you can't have a complex that needs a savior unless you need saving. And you need saving because of your what? Your material and political predicament, right? And so that's what I mean by we have to have a way in which we think about these matters in terms of systems and how systems are put together, like network together, right? So you think about network computers, you have servers, right? That talk to each other. And they have one shared goal or goals, right? Which is to communicate a particular idea, set of ideas. And so think about the educational industry as one server. The Hollywood server and communication server in terms of entertainment and news as another. And think about the political structure and systems, right? Everything from voting to policy to the rule of law, whatever that's supposed to mean, as another. And you can go down the line, right? Economic system, capitalism, Wall Street as another server. They're all communicating with each other about one idea. This society is a white republic that should only be governed and ran by the views and values that white and European. And therefore, everything in terms of curriculum, visuals, values should what? Metastasize and bleed into all those throughout the servers, right? Networked. And in those networks where we find people of African ancestry, they need to be saved from themselves because they are the problem. Their presence is the problem, right? But guess what? Whiteness requires blackness, not the other way around, right? So white folks created blackness in order to justify the idea of whiteness. And therefore all the other, white supremacy, white superiority, all those other things are then justified. So the complex works within that network, right? They need saving for themselves. And guess who will save them, right? In other words, think about it this way. Pick any movie, any Black movie, that's successful, they can't be heroes in their own stories. Pick your favorite book of literature that is about quote unquote Black people, African people. You'll notice that they can't be heroes in their own story. Hotel Rwanda. Exactly. You need a white savior, right? Think about all those movies you see with athletes, the football player, for example, Sandra Bullock, right? The family is a savior, right? There has to be a white savior, right? And so you can't be the hero in your own story. It's the message of the savior complex, right? And so, but when it comes to people like Malcolm and Garvey, it works the same way, right? In the sense that these people, they function as things that you can never attain, right? And but it also serves as the violence. How did Marcus Garvey and Malcolm and Martin and others leave this earth? Violently. Garvey was deported. He was a shell of himself in Jamaica, never able to reconstitute the UNIA, right? Malcolm, assassinated, right? Martin, assassinated, 68, Malcolm, 64. Both men before they reached 40, right? You can go down the line. So it's those people are less about the complex than it is about if you dare try to replace our idea of the savior, this is what will happen to you, right? And that serves to basically provide two ideological forces. A, you are your worst enemy and we are your saviors, right? We being this white, archetypical figure. And B, if you dare try to provide a black version of that savior, this violence will be meted out to them. Meaning you can't say, the message that you can't be your own savior. And so therefore, I agree with you that yes, people of African ancestry should be their own leaders. And my suggestion, you start by looking at your children. Look at them. Let them be your inspiration. Don't look for Malcolm over there, or Garvey over there, or Sojourner Truth over there, or Harriet Tubman over there to inspire you. Look at your children for inspiration. Do it for them and the grandchildren. I always measure success per 3 generations. Whatever you do for 3 generations. So the children are what you should look toward, not Malcolm, not Garvey. Look at the children, right? And think 3 generations ahead. And when you do that, you will be a leader of your family community and in a much better position than if you look towards the next Garvey, the next Malcolm. And what drives that is dogma. It's belief. And here's how you know when something is dogmatic. If you're part of a dogmatic organization and you question their premise, not disagree, but question it. Why do we believe this? And the response you get is not loving with hugs and pounds and daps, right? That's dogmatic. These are litmus tests. If you say to your religious organization, why do we believe this? Why do we believe that? They look at you sideways. That's dogma. So these are small things you can do just to test, right? If you're part of a dogmatic religion, organization, community, village, you name it, right? Just question some of the basic premises or tenets of that belief or of that organization or of that community or of that group. And if they respond to you, not with embrace and love, it's like, hey, wonderful, we love it, then you know it's dogmatic.